Okay, chapter 17. So things aren't looking too promising for Celeste. She's been caught. Everybody knows what she's been up to. So not only has she been publicly outed as a pedophile, not only is she awaiting trial for her crimes, I would have to say, worst of all, she has to live in an apartment in Tampa. The months before my trial were spent alone on house arrest in a shoddy Tampa apartment. It had wheezing air conditioning and low-quality gray carpet that I refused to walk on barefoot. I mean, if you ask me, she's already in prison. I mean, ugh. There's also a lot of protesters outside the apartment. A lot of women, probably mothers. I can't imagine. What's the problem? What are they upset about? All this really is... it's just an excuse to make signs. You know, women love crafts. They went to the craft store and they got to buy the poster board and the markers. And they got to put it down in the grass and write their slogan on it. Which is apparently, teachers, not touchers. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good slogan. You know, you get to meet up with other moms. You get to be social. It's like Facebook in real life. With a little less complaining. Droves of pear-shaped soccer moms set up camp on the sidewalk across the street and picketed day and night with homemade posters declaring me to be a sick child molester who deserved life in prison. I could only imagine their husbands were happy my case had given these beastly women a new hobby that got them out of the house. I just had a dark thought. Like, what if, say, one of these women, they're telling their husband, they're like, honey, I'm going down to that evil bitch's apartment now to protest with some women I met on Facebook. I'll be back in a little bit. I gotta stop at the craft store first. And then I'm going to the protest. Should be a couple hours. And the husband's like, okay, alright honey, love you. And then she goes out the door. And then he just molests their children. I know that's not funny, but that's probably actually happened in the history of the world. In the history of the world, there had to have been a situation where a woman was actively protesting a pedophile while her husband, or somebody that lives with them, was actively doing the thing. It's like, you should have just stayed at home with your picket sign. She's following her husband around the house with a picket sign, trying to get him not to... That's kids. That's not funny. Yelling and shaking signs, they became workers in a protest economy whose currency was appreciative car honks. Anytime they received the blaring horn tap of a supporter, the women's beefy arms would raise up and they'd high-five one another. I've never, protested anything. I've never gone down to a place with a picket sign and protested something. I get how it's organized, but then you set a time limit for how long you're going to do it? Because I imagine the first hour of a picket protest is pretty cool. You know, you're there, you see more and more people showing up, so you get excited for it. And you're just like, we're really doing something here. We're really going to make a change. This is the day it all happens. This is the day a protest actually works. I can feel it. And then, after that, after everybody's shown up and you're like, okay, we're going to start protesting now. So you're just kind of holding your picket sign, chanting the same thing over and over and over. And after a while, you start to feel like, all right, we've been at this for a minute, huh? Eventually, every protest runs out of steam. So you just kind of, their arms just start getting lower and lower. Their voices getting quieter and quieter. And they're just like, all right, I feel like we said teachers not touchers a couple thousand times. I feel like we did some good work today, guys. We can wrap it up, and I'll see you guys here tomorrow. And we'll do the same thing. I'm sure it's making a difference. If you know that there's a pedophile in an apartment, awaiting trial, I'd get a bunch of little kids out there protesting. I think that would have more impact. Bunch of little kids saying, hey, we don't like it when you do this. We don't like it. Because otherwise it's just, according to her description, a bunch of beefy ladies who aren't, she's clearly saying that they're nowhere near as attractive as she is. That's how you flip it. You take the thing that she's attracted to, and then, of course there will be adult supervision. But just have the kids marching in circles with the picket signs. Yeah, there has to be adult supervision, though. That'd be a terrible irony. A bunch of children outside a pedophile's apartment picketing, and then a van pulls up and just scoops them all up. It'd be like one of them, those whales that like open their mouths real wide and they eat like hundreds of thousands of pounds of plankton at once. That van just come and just scoop them all up. After a decade of hiding my urges, I'll admit it wasn't easy to come to terms with the fact that my preference had been publicly outed. It was as though in merely following my own desire, I'd been catapulted far beyond the intended lands of pleasure into a realm of punishment. And she equates this feeling with when she was younger riding the school bus, and her bus driver would have to quickly slow down, and the way that force, the way that pulls your body, like when you're in a car and you slam on the brakes, you'd feel everything and you hit the front of you, like that kind of feeling. So if you ever wanted to know, that's how it feels getting outed as a pedophile. every time you hit the brakes, every time you almost run a stop sign and you catch it, or you think you're gonna get through that light, and you change your mind, like, there might be a cop watching, and then you slam on your brakes. That's what it feels like to be outed as a pedophile. So if you see people who drive that poorly, to where they're just constant, every time they stop, they just slam on their brakes, just slamming on them, just no sense of flow, pacing, control. People who just slam on their brakes at like stoplights or stop signs, pedophiles, all of them. You know why? Because they're preparing themselves for that feeling. They walk around all day with this horrible secret, and they know somebody's gonna find out. Somebody's gonna catch them. So it's like weight training to get stronger. It's the way like divers hold their breath, like those deep sea guys who go down. They hold their breath to practice things like that. You have to train for these things. So those people who slam their brakes, they want to keep that feeling happening over and over, so that when they finally do get caught, it's like, what you gonna do? You caught me. A guy comes home from work, and his wife's just hysterical. She's just crying her eyes out, mascara running. And she's sitting at the family computer. And she's like, I found it, John. 400 terabytes? How could you do 400 terabytes? But we have children, John. 2 daughters. And you did this to our family? You ruined our lives? And John's like, you got me. Sorry, Cheryl. I know this isn't hitting as hard as you thought it would, but I slam on my brakes a lot. I'm used to this. Well, there we solved it. Stop signs are only there to train pedophiles for dealing with that moment when they get caught. So, if you're not a pedophile, you don't need to stop at a stop sign. New law. Just made a new law. If you run a stop sign and you get pulled over, the cop's like, you ran that stop sign? Yeah. Do you know I'm not a pedophile, right? Did you stop at it, officer? In an attempt to help with her public image, this is through the advice of her lawyer, who is named Dennis. Dennis is suggesting that she makes herself look younger, so that she appears closer to Boyd and Jack's age group. So it wouldn't seem so far-fetched that she would, I often stood in front of the studio apartment's dimly lit vanity mirror and practiced my courtroom expressions. Doe-eyed and frequently surprised, often shocked, seldom blinking, but with exaggerated motion when I did. So on her first day of court, she tries to pay attention, but she can't help but fantasize about being in her jail cell and swarmed by a crowd of young boys. Now, see, that's your problem, Celeste. You need to focus on your surroundings and stop thinking about all these goddamn little boys. Maybe she has some kind of weird ADHD, but it's like, instead of not being able to focus on a topic because you're focused on a bunch of other topics, it's just, you can't focus on a topic because you're just thinking about fucking children. I guess that's just pedophilia. Yeah, that's just pedophilia. Never mind. So now she's in her holding cell. The doorknob did in fact turn seconds later, but there was nothing magical about it. No orgy of foundlings in tiny white briefs grappling for sexual consolation filed in. No masterful escape plot unfolded. Instead, Ford opened the door. "Hi, honey, how was your day? How was court?" He doesn't ask that. That's actually the end of the chapter.